Good morning, Godfrey First United Methodist Church. Thank you for joining me this morning as we go into our Coffee, Christ, and Conversation for this morning. This morning, we're going to be going over the next chapter in the book that we've been following through. Jesus is the question, the 307 questions Jesus asked, and the three that he answered. And to see that this morning, we're going to go to I think it's the third to last chapter or second to last. And the question this morning is it's questions from the cross. Where Martin is getting this from this morning is Jesus' last question is recorded in the Gospel of Matthew and one of the other Gospels, not John, that states, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And this questions from the cross really invites us into a few considerations for this morning. This question, church, functions as a lamentation. Now, you may know that there is a book of Lamentations in the Old Testament, but you may not be aware of what an actual lament is. We'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things that Martin points out this morning, as far as what a lamentation is that there is more lamentation in the Old Testament, in the Psalms and other places, than there are prayers of praise. And what this lifts up and points out, church, is that sometimes we don't think we get the way that we should with what we should get from God. And we go to God. And we even see that in Jesus' last question as he hangs from the cross. We can see that there is this question of lament. Now, some of you may know this, but when Christ says the words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He's pointing out one of the Psalms. And in that Psalm, it's a Psalm of, you're not going to be surprised here, lament. And it starts with lament and doubt, and it ends with God, or challenging God to say, "God, you're not doing these things for me." And then the ending is, "But God, you've done these things in the past, and I know that you will meet my need in my lamentation." So we can see that this question functions as a way for us to talk to God in a deep, deep way. Even Jesus makes the point of addressing this lamentation to my God, my God. So even in a moment of extreme anguish and agony, he's still able to address God. And what we can see from this question too is it reminds us that Jesus being fully God and fully human. God, or Jesus Christ, is able to experience the full range of human emotion, even those moments maybe of doubt. That's what Martin wants to point out. I'm not saying Jesus doubted on the cross. What I'm saying is Martin pokes at that in the book. But if Jesus is going to come and be a human, all of us at some points in our journey today or throughout our lives may encounter moments where we feel that God is really far away. And that's what Martin's pointing out here, that even Jesus in his ministry while here on earth was able to experience the same human emotions that we might have this day. So this question functions as a way to remind us that though we want to praise God for all that God does for us, there is room for lamentation. God is big enough to take it. If we are upset with God, we can go to God to talk about it. And that's what this question can help us remind of. And it also reminds us that Jesus is able to experience the full range of human emotions. And the other part there, too, that I loved his analogy for this, is he lifted up that to save a coal miner, you'll have to go into the cave. What does Martin mean by this? Why am I lifting this up as one of the main points that Martin brings forth? Well, is God coming down, is not wearing Jesus as a shawl, or Jesus is not wearing humanity as a shawl and is fully God underneath. No. Jesus is fully human and Jesus is fully God. And what that means is that if God is going to save us from everything, then then God would have to have the full experience, even moments of feeling that God is far away. And that's why this coal miner thing makes sense. If you're going to go save a coal miner, you're going to have to go to the deepest parts of the mines at time. You're going to have to dig all the way down in order to save them, to bring them back out. You have to go into the same danger that the coal miner is in order to save them. So Jesus, in saving humanity, has to go to the deepest parts of despair that we might feel. It's just an interesting way to reflect on it and to consider this question in a new way, to consider that we lament. And just as we lamented, Christ lamented as well. So Jesus is asking you, are you really alone when even God feels far away? One of the points that I've mentioned before this, and the one that Martin brings up again, is that Jesus, when he asks this question, addresses God. For some folk, they may not even realize that while they are lamenting, they're still asking God to come alongside them in their loneliness. There are plenty of people you know in your life that are extremely have a deep faith that you can't even begin to grasp at times, but we can know that they may not feel God being close to them. I lift her up from the past, or one example was Mother Teresa, the woman that we think of as doing all these wonderful, great things and a holy woman of God. And she writes in her memoirs to her pastor that she at times felt that God was far away from her. Even those who are doing everything they can for Jesus, they can feel that God is far away from them. But is God truly far away from you? Or can you just not feel it? And that's what Martin, I think, is trying to push into here with Jesus' last question from the cross, which is, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's not to say that God has forsaken us. It's to say that we may feel like God is not there, even though that God is there. We just may not be able to perceive it. And things happen to us. This question of why me has been a long question asked in the church. If you want to see an entire book dedicated to why me, read the book of Job. The book of Job reminds us that even all the way back then, people who did the right thing at times were not able to, or were not as blessed as others, and wrong things happened to them. That's what this question is getting at. It's reminding us that even in our times where we are struggling and where we may not know exactly where God is in our lives, that God is there. We may just not be able to sense it, because even the best of people have some things go wrong in their own lives. So this week, I want you to ponder these questions as we move forward. When have you lamented? When have you actually brought your laments to God? You may feel really icky about trying to bring a lament to God, but remember that over half the Psalms are prayers of lament, and there's an entire book dedicated to lament. God can take it. So just remember that you may have something on your heart, but you can bring it to God. How has lament brought you closer to God? Maybe you have lamented to God before. How has it brought you into deeper relationship? And when have you asked the same question that Christ asked from the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me? I can think of many incidents in my life where I've wondered, why me, Lord? Why have you left me behind? So I want you to think of those same things. Before we go to our time of closing, I want to make sure that I reference you to the new book we'll be studying, because we're almost done with the 307 questions that Jesus asked. We're almost done with the book. So the next book we're going to be studying, I've got to make sure that I can see it in the shot, so excuse me while I fuss with my mouse here this morning. But we're going to be studying this book. It's by Richard Foster. It's The Celebration of the Discipline, the Path to Spiritual Growth. It's broken into 3 parts, and it begins to allow us to consider how we might improve our spiritual discipline in our own lives. So that'll be our next book that we go through. And next week, too, for the book that we're studying this week, Jesus is the Question, it's going to be questions of the post-resurrection Jesus and then some miscellaneous questions that Jesus asks. So there you are, church. Well, I want you to ponder this morning this last question from the cross and see where it might lead you in your relationship with Jesus Christ. Peace be with you, church. Blessings.